Let's talk about the silent, invisible systems that are right now, at this very moment, shaping your life. We're talking about the code that decides what you see, who you meet, and maybe most importantly, who you're becoming. We're about to go deep inside the invisible architecture of our modern world. So let me just kick this off with a question. What if everything you've been told about getting ahead is now obsolete? What if the biggest factor determining your success is no longer who you know or even what you know, but how a machine, an algorithm, perceives you? This isn't some far-off sci-fi scenario. This is the new reality. And it's happening whether we're paying attention or not. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we first have to see just how deeply this code is now woven into the fabric of our lives. We're not just talking about your social media feed. We're talking about the very foundations of how we work, build our careers, find our partners, and even how we see ourselves. Let's start with the place we spend a huge chunk of our time, our jobs. Something fundamental is shifting under our feet. The human manager is, in many places, being replaced. And not by another person, but by a process, an automated, data-driven system that doesn't have an office and, never sleeps. It's called algorithmic management. Just think about the gig economy, platforms like Uber or Upwork. There's no human boss handing out assignments, checking in on you, or deciding what you get paid. It's all run by an algorithm. But here's the catch. Research consistently shows this weird side effect. People who are managed by algorithms report feeling like they have lower social status, like their work is simpler, and that they themselves are more replaceable. So that's the day-to-day, but let's zoom out to the entire sweep of your career. Platforms like LinkedIn aren't just a place to post your resume anymore. Oh, no. They are incredibly sophisticated reputation engines, and they operate on a completely new set of rules that are creating two very, very different roads to success. And this right here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. This slide reveals a huge split. On one side, you have traditional career moves, like getting promoted. That's still highly predictable. Your experience, your job history, that stuff can forecast your next move with over 97% accuracy. But now look at the other side, the new currency, follower growth. This new form of digital capital is way less predictable, and it's heavily influenced by things that have absolutely nothing to do with your professional skills, like how good your profile looks, and get this, even a calculated beauty score. It is a whole new game. And of course, the logic of the algorithm doesn't just stop when you clock out. It follows us home. In fact, it's become the primary matchmaker for an entire generation. The search for connection has been totally transformed from, a game of chance and serendipity into a high-stakes data science problem. So here's the crucial thing researchers found. They call it a popularity bias. A deep dive into a major dating platform found that the algorithms aren't just showing you people you might be compatible with. They are heavily, heavily biased towards showing you users who are already popular and already rated as attractive. This creates a feedback loop, a digital elite, where the most visible people get even more attention, making them even more visible, while a lot of other people are basically left in the dark. And all of this brings us to what might be the most profound change of all. These systems aren't just curating what we see and who we cross paths with. They are actively starting to curate who we are, creating this tight feedback loop between what we do and the digital reflection the algorithm keeps showing us. The idea is called the algorithmized self. Think about the TikTok For You page. It gets so hyper-personalized, so dialed in, that after a while it can feel like you're not interacting with other people anymore. It can feel like you're interacting with a version of yourself just filtered through code. One user described this really unsettling feeling when she realized the algorithm was showing her people who not only had her sense of humor, but who physically looked like her. She was interacting with repackaged versions of herself. Okay, let's really dig into this next part because this is where we have to make a major mental shift. We tend to think of algorithms as neutral tools, right? Like a calculator or a search engine. They just do a job. But that's not what they are. They are the active architects of a new and mostly invisible social hierarchy. And this is the core insight, the one thing you need to get. Algorithms are not passive observers that are just ranking what's already popular. They are active agents that create the conditions for popularity. They set the rules of the game. And in doing so, they completely redefine what success and status even mean anymore. Now just look at the contrast on this slide. It's night and day. The old world of status was built on human gatekeepers, editors, bosses, admissions officers. Your value was signaled by credentials, by degrees, by formal networks. But the new digital hierarchy, It runs on algorithmic favor. Status is now determined by engagement and virality. It's not about your institution. It's about whether your content contains what researchers call prime information. That's prestigious, in-group, moral, or emotional content that algorithms are literally programmed to amplify. In this new world, if you can trigger those prime elements, you can climb the ladder, regardless of your traditional credentials. But if algorithms are building this new hierarchy, what are they using as the building materials? And this is the uncomfortable answer. They're using our own history, with all of its built-in injustices and biases. And in the process, they're not just repeating those biases. They are automating them and amplifying them on a global scale we've never seen before. This is algorithmic bias, and it's not a glitch. It's a feature that pops up when you train a machine on data from an unequal world. I mean, think about it. If you train a hiring algorithm on decades of data where men were promoted more than women, what does it learn? It doesn't learn to be fair. It learns to prefer male candidates. The algorithm simply codifies the past. As the scholar Sophia Imogen-Noble puts it, this isn't some accident. It is fundamental to how these systems operate. They're designed to find patterns, and in our society, the patterns of inequality are deep and they're everywhere. The code just learns to replicate them with brutal efficiency. And this slide just lays out the devastating real-world consequences. In healthcare, algorithms have literally misallocated resources, leading to poorer outcomes for Black patients. In criminal justice, risk assessment tools trained on data from over-policed neighborhoods assign higher risk scores to minorities, perpetuating this horrible cycle of incarceration. And in finance, algorithms use proxies for race like your zip code to charge marginalized groups higher interest rates. This isn't theoretical, this is real life. So, on top of this already biased system, we have to deal with a synthetic reality. Some estimates suggest that up to a quarter, 1 out of every 4 interactions on social media, are driven by bots. These are automated accounts designed to amplify certain stories, to manufacture a fake consensus, and make extreme views look way more mainstream than they are. This just pollutes the data that both we and the algorithms use to make judgments, creating a totally distorted reflection of reality. And this brings us to the second huge shift in our thinking. It's really tempting to believe the solution is just to get better at playing the algorithm's game, to master the art of going viral. But that's a trap, because the game itself is designed to turn your attention, your engagement, and ultimately your very identity into a commodity. So the deeper truth is this. The winning move isn't just about becoming literate in how algorithms work. It's about building cognitive resilience against their fundamental design. It's about protecting your focus and your sense of self from a system that is built to monetize them. Researchers actually have a name for this. They call it synthetic social alienation. It's that deep disconnect that happens when our social interactions get reduced to data points, likes, shares, views. We start performing for the algorithm, not for genuine human connection. And it erodes our relationships and leaves us feeling deeply isolated, even in this hyper-connected world. So, what do? How do we push back? How do we operate inside this new hierarchy without completely losing ourselves to it? Well, this isn't about deleting all your accounts and disappearing. It's about developing a conscious, strategic playbook for reclaiming your own agency in this new algorithmized world. So here it is, a 4-step playbook. First, audit your inputs. This means you have to consciously diversify your feed. If you're only seeing one political viewpoint, you have to actively seek out the other side. Follow experts in fields you know nothing about. You have to intentionally break out of your own echo chamber. Second, identify your digital habitus. This is a term for all those subconscious ways you perform online just to please the algorithm. Are you posting that picture because you genuinely want to share it, or because you know it'll get a ton of likes? Start questioning your own motives. Third, practice cognitive inoculation. Just like a vaccine, exposing yourself to small, controlled doses of manipulation techniques can help you build immunity. Read about common misinformation tactics. Watch videos that break down how propaganda works. The more you understand the game, the harder it is for you to be played. And finally, advocate for transparency. The black box of these algorithms has to be opened. We need to demand a clearer understanding of the code that has so much power over our lives. And that means supporting the people and organizations pushing for greater tech regulation. And that leaves us with one last question to think about. These systems, they're going to continue to rank us, to sort us, and to score us based on their own logic of engagement and virality. But in this world that's increasingly defined and measured by code, we have to decide for ourselves what truly has value. Beyond all the metrics, beyond the hierarchy, what is your unquantifiable, unrankable worth?